let's give you an insight into why I had to trick my wife. I'm David, 32 years old, working as a legal officer at a firm. I'd been married to my wife, Emma, 30 years old, for 2 years. Before marriage, we had been in a relationship for about 1 year. So you could say that we had spent 3 years of our life together in so-called love. We met each other at the parking of a shopping mall. I used to go to this local shopping mall near my apartment every month to grab the stuff I needed for my living. One day while I was in the parking area, I felt this astounding moment of seeing a girl who was trying to fit her shopping stuff in a car trunk. At first I hesitated to approach and help her, yet stood there looking at her. After seeing her struggling, I went to her and asked if I could help her. She happily got aside and I put the stuff in the trunk. As she went away while thanking me, I was mesmerized and did not realize that I stood at the exact spot for 2 minutes without any moment. The minute I got back to my senses, I hurriedly went for my car and reached my home. That night I thought about myself being so stupid. I was cursing myself that why I did not ask for her name or phone number. How can I do this stupid thing? Because I knew nothing about her whereabouts. Anyways, I prayed that night to see her again. Days passed and I was much busy with my work. At that time, I was working as an intern and I had to manage all of the case files and the paperwork. Yet I did not forget about this meetup with a girl. One day, as I was sitting alone in the staff room during break and had my lunch, I heard a knock at the door. As I turned towards the door, I was surprised to see the same girl at the door. I could feel my face turn reddish to see her at the moment. She asked if she could come in and I was speechless. I could feel the river of joy flowing inside. I just nodded and got inside to let her sit. I asked why she was there at our law firm. She told me that her uncle had some matters to discuss and consult legal advice. We sat there for about 15 minutes and then she went as her uncle was calling her. Before she went, she wrote her phone number on a piece of paper and placed it before me on the table. I took the paper in my hand and saw towards her. She just smiled. Her name Emma was also written right above the number. So it was the background of how our relationship began. In a span of few weeks, we had built a strong relationship. She would often come to our office due to her uncle's matters. She also was living with her uncle as her parents were divorced and living in other countries separately. She had to manage her college and a part-time job. Listen to this other thing. I had some land in my ownership. On my graduation day, my father gifted me a farmhouse in the suburbs of our city because he wanted me to pursue a law degree and I studied what he wished for me. Here's what I got. I often took her to my farmhouse whenever I had off from my work. We had also spent our intimate moments in those times of companionship. She was very happy at that time and would often ask for marriage. I also wanted the same for myself as she was the only beautiful-hearted girl I had ever met in my whole life, or maybe I was the one thinking like this. I would say that we were having a marriage-like relationship going on between us. We never fought or argued over any matter because our matters were resolved with mutual consent. As far as I am concerned, I also did not want any argument or petty fight to come between us. That's why whenever any matter seemed to take a serious turn, I would quickly fix the problem. Trust is the basis of any relationship and we had ours built strong enough that it did not allow any misunderstanding to take place. This attitude of mine also appealed to her because she was feeling safe and loved by me. One day my father had planned a family gathering at a farmhouse. I also invited Emma to the event as we both became an essential part of each other's life. Besides, she also wanted to meet my family. We both came to the event hand in hand. My father seemed somewhat confused after meeting her. The day ended full of charm at our farmhouse. After Emma went back to her place and all our guests departed, my father came to me. I felt like he wanted to talk to me about something. He sat beside me and asked how I met my girlfriend. I told her everything from beginning to end. You are the one who would make decisions of your life, but before you do, think about it. He talked in a polite tone. Is there anything wrong with her? I asked instantly. No, there isn't, but be attentive until you decide for life, he added. I thought about these words of my father for the whole night but couldn't get the meaning of them. I never found anything doubtful or irritating in my girlfriend. Still, I was becoming uncertain inside of myself. The very next day, when we met at a tea after my work, I asked her what she thought of my family. She was quite impressed with my family. I just urged for the same for myself, but did not even get the taste of it my entire life. She was looking miserable. "You are my family, so don't be sad or hopeless," I told her. She was happy to listen to this. So when we had spent almost 1 year together, we decided to get married. The event of this day was planned at my farmhouse. We had our family and friends gathered there, and the day was memorable as ever. Then we both went out of the city for 1 week to make our lives more memorable and lovable. As time passed, petty arguments started to come between us. We usually started to argue over trivial matters. We tried not to ruin our long-term relationship, so we always sorted out our differences. One day, as I returned from work, she just started saying that I did not give her the love or time she needed or deserved. I was stressed out from work and was feeling unappreciated at my job. At first, I tried to understand why she was upset. I had provided her with everything. Before she could utter another word, I just snapped back at her and said that I was doing the best I could and that she wasn't understanding how hard my job was those days. At that moment, our argument escalated and soon we both were saying hurtful things to each other. Then I stormed out of this room and slammed the door behind me. She was sitting on the couch and tears were streaming down her face. After some time had passed, I felt guilty because I did not want to hurt her. So I came back into the room and sat down with her. I put my arm around her and apologized for the way I had acted. I also told her that I loved her and I was sorry for not being more understanding and supportive. She apologized too and we hugged each other. From then onward, we made a conscious effort to communicate better and be more understanding and supportive of each other's needs. We realized that we were just like a team and needed to work together to get past our differences and find happiness. One day, my wife told me that she wanted to invite her uncle's family to our farmhouse because she had not met them in a very long time. She also wanted to properly introduce me to her family. I happily agreed for her sake. But in reality, I don't know what to say at that moment because I had already met them on many occasions and was always irritated to see their reaction to visiting our home or farmland. They always seemed captivated strangely and would ask for every single thing in their worth. Anyways, as I have agreed, now I had to meet them again. On Sunday, her uncle, her aunt, and their 3 children came to our place. We all drove to our farm. As I was sitting with her uncle and aunt, I saw my wife going into the mansion with her cousins. Her uncle mostly asked about how my family acquired this land and that he always wanted to find Emma a man who would make her happy and comfortable. He said that he was very satisfied with Emma's life. The thing that made me curious was that he asked me to register some property in the name of my wife because he wanted to be sure that I love Emma. At first, I was speechless to hear such illogical demand, but then I just nodded and said that I would make sure that my wife would get what she deserved. After 2 days, my wife also asked me the same thing. She wanted me to have some property in her name. She began to feel like she wanted some sense of security and ownership. I listened to her patiently, but was hesitant to agree. I wasn't sure if I was ready to share my property with her. She also told me that it would help their relationship grow stronger and that they would be more strongly bound to each other. I told her that I would consider this to transfer half of my farmhouse in her name. Over time, I noticed that she was visiting her uncle's house more frequently. Moreover, I also observed a strange behavior in her that was starting to make me question things. It started with small things like her being extra secretive about her phone and computer. She would always close out of her apps and lock her phone whenever I walked into the room. I asked about it from her, but what I got were some bullshit excuses. She also started staying out late without explaining where she was going. I tried not to let it bother me, but I couldn't stake the feelings that something was off. One day I decided to do some digging and end this misery of mine. I waited until she was out running errands and then I went through her phone and computer. What I found shocked me. There were texts and emails from her cousin whom I had seen with her going into the mansion, and a lot of pictures of them in their intimate moment that I never imagined seeing. She was also telling him to wait until she's done with the property thing. She would ask for divorce quickly after receiving the property documents, and they would be together. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that she had been secretly keeping her affair and potentially cheating on me. Anyhow, I decided to keep the secret to myself and would ask her at the right time. So now I made false documents of my property in her name and signed them on by a friend. I just wanted to get done with her. After preparing forged documents, I waited for her to ask again about the property. I wanted to confront her whenever I got home at night, that how I had been struggling with feelings for her. I needed her to beg for forgiveness, and then she might promise to end things with the other man and work on our marriage. But at the same time, I was heartbroken and unable to overcome the betrayal. Also, it was impossible to come out even stronger after her affair. So the days of my agony were about to end. It was one of my typical days as I returned from work and we sat down to have dinner. As we were eating, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off in her mood. She seemed to talk about something. I had noticed that my wife had been acting confused, and I couldn't help but wonder if something was going to happen. Finally, I decided to confront her. "Is everything okay?" I asked tentatively. "You had been acting strange today." She hesitated for a moment before finally saying, "I'd been thinking that you had not transferred property in my name yet. I don't know, but I think you don't love me anymore." I wanted to tell her, "Shut the fuck, you cheater." Yet I remained calm and went towards the room. When I got back, I had property documents in my hand. She quickly came towards me and took papers from my hand. She was so much elated and did not even notice the address or signature. I thought that now she would thank me or might not want to go away to her AP, but to my surprise she immediately asked for a divorce. She told me that she did not want to live with me anymore and had found another man. I was shocked. She was just too discourteous and selfish woman. I was too hurt and angry. The argument that I followed was intense and emotional. I felt betrayal and used, and I couldn't understand how she could do this to me. In the end, I asked her to pack her bags and must leave now. I also couldn't stay with a woman who had hurt me so deeply. I knew that I needed to take some time for myself to heal, but I was also relieved that I had found her character. But she did not know about the documents. I was feeling joy in me when I imagined her face in anger and dismay. That's because of our fake documents. Then she would be left alone to face the consequences of her actions. But then her life would be a long and difficult road.